Hi everyone, this video is going to be based on the red flags of abuse that I happened to notice right off the bat with the police footage of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie getting pulled over. A lot of you are familiar with this case, and I'm sure a lot of you probably noticed the red flags of this being an abusive relationship, just because we in this community are familiar with abuse, and maybe to an outsider that has never been in a relationship like this, they won't understand that narcissistic abuse can show up in ways like this because it's very insidious. You might not always have physical marks on you, but the emotional damage is there that these abusers love to do to their victims, and they usually will do it to the ones that love them. It's a very sad situation. I noticed right off in that police footage of them getting pulled over that Gabby was taking all the blame. She basically was saying it was her fault that Brian was distracted on the road and hit the curb and so forth. And I think that, especially if you come from a dysfunctional family, a toxic family, you are trained, you are brainwashed to protect your abuser. And I'm not saying that she came from a toxic family. I don't know her history with her family, but whatever her past was like, let's just worry about what she was in at that point. She was in a toxic relationship, and Brian looked like he was the victim, and he was soaking that title up whenever he realized that the cops were on his side, because the cops had divided them for questioning, and they said that he wasn't in any trouble and that they could arrest Gabby because Brian had the physical marks on him. And Brian right off the bat had wondered what Gabby had already told the cops. He even joked and said, well, I hope she didn't say anything too bad about me. He just kept playing that victim role, and that's what these toxic abusers do. They will turn the tables, they will gaslight, they will charm others. They know when to have the mask on and when to have it off, and typically they have it off behind closed doors with their victims. I'm surprised that he let it slip off during the fight that they had in the parking lot. Something must have escalated so much that he didn't care about witnesses seeing him act like that. But the poor girl, she even had admitted to the officers that she had OCD and that she didn't like how Brian would, go barefoot hiking and this and that, and he had dirty feet. Even Brian had joked about how he had dirty feet, and that would basically aggravate her. And let's face it, I mean, they were on the road for 5 months. They didn't have the luxury of just being able to do laundry, and she probably liked the van a certain level of clean, and she had beautiful white bedding and light pillows, and I mean, she did a really good job with decorating her van. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful inside. And I'm sure if you are familiar with a narcissist, you know already that if you tell them not to do something, they're going to deliberately do it to aggravate you. So I'm sure Brian liked to antagonize her and probably deliberately would hop in there with dirty feet and then cause her to get anxious, and it would probably escalate and turn into a fight. I'm almost sure in my gut that Brian also gave her silent treatments while they were on the road. I think this girl was so mentally drained. She was at a breaking point due to the emotional abuse that Brian probably put her through. And here she was made out to look like the aggressor. I don't know what confusion there was between the person calling 911 and how that got relayed to the cops to being that Gabby was the aggressor, because clearly if you listen to the 911 footage that they released just yesterday or the day before, it's clear that Gabby was being smacked around in that store parking lot, yet she never once led on to that, and she didn't even share that information with the officers. She was, again, protecting Brian right off the bat. She didn't want him to get arrested, and she was more concerned about his well-being. And that is just a trait of My gosh, scared the heck out of me. My notes just flew. Okay, and I'm at a park talking about a scary case. So oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Anyways, so another thing that I had noticed when Brian was talking along with the cops and he was charming them, he was basically, like I said, you know, just laughing and joking. You wouldn't even think that the couple was together, because here she's bawling her eyes out and trying to keep it together, and he's just joking like it's any other day. And they had asked him like why he was hyper, and he said it was because the police lights pulling him over. But I mean, you just wouldn't even think that they were together. I mean, he had no concern for her having a crying meltdown or anything. No guilt was portrayed at all as to what he just did to her before they got pulled over. So he was calling her crazy, talking about her OCD, saying that he was trying to calm her down. And, you know, she's saying that he's even put her blog down that she was starting. Here, she was so excited to be doing this blog. And again, that's what abusers do. They like to keep you under their thumb. They like to be in control. They want to be the main thing in your life. He seemed to be threatened that she was doing this blog, and it probably would have taken off. I mean, she did beautiful shots. If you look at her Instagram, she had beautiful looking, it looked like professional shots. I mean, she looked like she was a model, and she was doing such a great job. And I think he was threatened and jealous by that and was obviously putting it down. And she said that he was putting it down and that he always stresses her out. And here she went and quit her job working at a natural food store to fulfill this dream of hers. And bravo to that. I mean, at 22 years old, to be brave enough to want to travel. And it sounded like, you know, they were engaged before and then broke off the engagement, but she still chose him to go along for the ride. And she probably felt safer with him than going alone or with a girlfriend. And wow, I mean, just I'm sure she regretted it as she went along, because I'm sure the abuse that she was enduring behind the van doors was something 100 times worse than what the people probably witnessed when he let his mask drop at that parking lot of a store. It's just a very sad relationship. We've all been there. We've all been naive. Even some of us that are older, we are naive. But now we're enlightened, but we were naive when we were in the relationships with the narcissist. And now we know they love bomb us, they get us back. And I'm sure Brian was doing that to her, and she was probably desperate on the road and just trying to have a good time. And I'm sure he brought her down a lot. And it's just, these abusers are so toxic that I hope that if you guys are in a relationship where somebody is putting down something that you want to pursue, you see it for what it is. It's a red flag. You're in an abusive relationship and you need to get out of this abusive relationship, because look what can happen. If they are emotionally and verbally abusing you, more than likely it's going to end up being where they are physically abusing you. And if anything, if you're not already dealing with the consequences with your health getting affected, either your mental state or even your physical state, I mean, I'm sure that these relationships will lead to the victim getting cancer, brain aneurysm, stroke, heart attack, whatever. That can shorten your life right there by staying in these sorts of relationships. But it could also turn into the physical abuse of them hitting you, them murdering you. You don't want to be another statistic. So please, if you're in this sort of relationship, it doesn't matter what age you are, try and get yourself out, because as we know, life is short. And it might not always be perfect or always beautiful, but overall, our life is supposed to be a happy life. And overall, it is supposed to be a beautiful life in between the hard times. There's always going to be hard times, but you're not meant to be in a relationship where somebody is belittling you or threatening you of abandonment. And another thing, I mean, Gabby said she feared that he was going to abandon her and leave her there, which he was. And ultimately, that's exactly what he did. He left her body and is running now. But for him to lock her out of her own van and take her keys and her phone and tell her to calm down, I mean, can you imagine if somebody did that to you and you're out in the middle of nowhere? I mean, that'd be hard enough in an area that you're familiar with. But to have that happen in an area across the states that you've never been to before, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and then have the person that you're traveling with do that to you, of course you're going to get anxious and emotional and freak out on somebody. But for her not even to tell the cops that he had just gotten done smacking her around, that she just went through that, it's really, really heartbreaking, because she could have still been here. And she had so much life ahead of her. And maybe if she had told the truth to the cops, and somehow they took Brian and she took that van and just, you know, she was a brave girl, I'm sure she could have, you know, drove herself home in that van, even though she was worried about driving the van by herself. I'm sure, you know, if it would save her life, I'm sure she would have done that. And it's just sad that she basically lied for him. She lied and she protected him. And these abusers do not deserve to be protected. They should be exposed. And I don't care if it's a parent. I don't care if it's whatever relationship it is that you are in with a narcissist. Get yourself away from it. And you will be happier once you get to the other side. So anyways, happy healing to everybody. Please share your comments down below, and thank you so much for watching.